further ado, let's dive right on in. All right, everyone, for those of you who want to get in on the possibility of having your question featured on not just my podcast Talks with Taeler Hendrix, which airs every Tuesday, but also on my YouTube channel with QnA Wednesdays, here's what you're going to want to do. You're going to want to go to the link on one of the sides here, youtube.com/@TaelerHendrix. You're going to want to hit the subscribe button and scroll down to the latest QnA Wednesday video. Hit the thumbs up button to help us out in the algorithm, and then comment below with your question for your chance to be featured. A double whammy on my podcast as well as QnA Wednesdays on my YouTube channel, and potentially, depending on the type of question, maybe, just maybe, even on a Friday live stream of the brand live with Vincent Taeler. You never know. We've had a couple questions cross over into that realm of possibility, so super fun. 2 to 3 for the price of 1. You know what I'm saying? All right, so here we go. Let's dive right on in. One person asked me, what is something I think that wrestlers are doing wrong today? Okay, this is a huge question because I see so many things where I'm just like, why? No, don't, but you know, people don't necessarily want to hear it from me, you know. First things first, get off OnlyFans. Get off. It is not worth the money. You're making a short-term business decision that is going to have long-term consequences, and that money is probably already spent, and you're going to have to live with the repercussions of money that was so temporary. It's just not worth it. Another thing is, make it easy for people to book you. I cannot tell you how many countless profiles of professional wrestlers who want to make it big time who don't have their contact information and some of their stats in their bio. Do not be afraid to put who trained you, a little one-liner sort of indicator of what your overall vibe and gimmick is, because that is important for booking a show. Also put where you're based out of and how to contact you. This is basic business or basic wrestling 101, but I can't tell you how many people I see have not done it. Another thing is if take a look at your gear design. If your gear design looks like a bunch of other people's gear, don't do it. Don't spend that money. Get something that is more original. I am so tired of seeing those stupid garters on women's gear. I could probably think of at least 15 wrestlers right now who are wearing it on and off TV. There's no originality. Stop. Okay, it gives your butt a boost. We get it. But is that really necessary? Does it really need to go with your gimmick? You do squats, you've got a great butt. Okay, move on. You know, that does not need to be a part of every single person's gear. Another thing would be, just because everybody else is getting that opportunity does not mean it's a good opportunity. What this means is basically not all opportunities are created equal, and don't be afraid to burn some bridges, metaphorically speaking, you know, because some bridges should have never been built to begin with, and I know this firsthand. Okay, not every opportunity is a good opportunity, even if it says the word opportunity, and not everybody riding with you is for you, so don't be afraid to say no to certain booking opportunities, okay? Do not be afraid to say no. Just because you see everybody else getting that opportunity does not mean it's a good opportunity for you. And if everybody's getting that opportunity, is that opportunity really all that special anymore? I'm actually proud to say I was the first female gut check contestant ever for TNA Impact Wrestling, and I was the first gut check contestant that was completely live. Completely. Meaning my match and my promo were live. Okay, there were time cues that had to be hit and everything. I'm proud of that because nobody else can say that except me. You know, but if everybody and their mother and their brother and their sister and their godfather got that same opportunity, would that be special? You know, in front of over 1 million people? No. And how many wrestling programs are actually hitting over 1 million viewers on a regular basis? Not many. So I would definitely say that. Also, understand the places that you are traveling to is another big thing that I see wrestlers not focusing on. Certain states in the United States have different rules. There's a state in the United States where you are not allowed to drink a liquid, I'm not talking about alcohol. I mean, it could be water. You are not allowed to eat or drink anything while driving. You can get arrested for that. In the state of New Hampshire, I believe it's called Jessica's Law. You can get fined and or arrested if you have snow on the top of your vehicle that you did not properly clean off, because that actually killed someone. You know, in certain other countries, if they see you publicly intoxicated, they can beat you up and imprison you. Another country, it's illegal to spit on the sidewalk. I mean, which is gross, but sometimes necessary for certain people. But yeah, it's illegal. Let me see. You know, in certain cultures and in certain countries, you cannot legally hug somebody that you are not familially related to and or married to. So know the places you are going ahead of time so you don't get yourself in certain trouble. And to a point I previously made when I said not everyone riding with you is for you, this is true. You could think somebody is your best friend and you, like me, you want to be included and you want everybody to like you and have all these things and all these people in a big wedding with all of these wrestlers as your groomsmen and bridesmaids. It's fake. In 15 years, like, look back and see how many of those people are still friends. 99.998% of them won't be. And that's the honest to goodness truth, because it's the nature of the business. Nobody else wants you to be more successful or more happy than they are. And so people aren't loyal to you. They're loyal to their need of you. And once that need changes, so too does their loyalty. That's why I 100% agree with Steve Harvey when he said that loyalty has an expiration date, because for most people, that is unfortunately true. That is the narcissistic, egotistical, lacking a moral compass sort of society that we live in, and the wrestling business is a perfect example of that. I could go into more depth on that, but I think those are some basic points. I will move on now. Have I ever watched the A&E wrestling biography show? I've seen a little bit of it here and there, but am I, you know, a frequent watcher of it? No. I don't have the time to watch a lot of TV, to be honest with you. I'm busy trying to be my own version of a Renaissance woman. I don't have time for a lot of hate and negativity. These lights are really hot today, guys. Like, I'm like, I don't have time for a lot of negativity. I don't have time for trolls. I don't have time for a lot of television. Like, I've got big goals, and that requires big commitments, I guess is what I would say. Another person asked me, if I was president, what would I do? That is such a loaded question. I could probably do several videos on this from a female perspective, from a business perspective, and from a person that was actually a political science major. And plus I was in the education industry, and I was a young kid who had childhood dreams, who grew up with enough guts to actually go after those childhood dreams. So I would be pulling from a lot of different walks of life from my own personal experiences. One thing I would say is I would stop people from saying we have a housing crisis. We do not have a housing crisis. We could actually house all of our American homeless people like 10 times over with how much housing and stuff that we actually have right now without any brand new development. Okay, what we actually have is an affordability problem, which is a very big difference. The other thing is I would take every sort of politic out of our public school system. It does not belong there, and that's why a lot of other countries are beating us in education. I would also try to reform certain aspects of social media so that parents are not profiting over exploiting their children on social media, because that's actually a big growing problem that no one's talking about. I would also try to put some protection and blockers in place so that AI does not continue to take more and more jobs away from the American people here in the United States. It's really scary that AI is particularly targeting a lot of the jobs of middle class, mostly men, because there's less female truck drivers, for example, than men and stuff, but basically men and women. But one of the top paying jobs for men that don't have a college degree is actually being a truck driver. There's a lot of money to be made in that. I know this to be true because my father is a truck driver and has been from like the 70s or 80s. And you know, he has a lot of experience with this, and you want those people to be highly vetted out. You want those people to be highly trained. And I think a lot of these jobs are actually getting taken. Now, we don't actually have a job crisis problem either. What we actually have, in my opinion, is a culture problem. For example, people say that we have a poverty problem. I don't feel like this is 100% the case. I think that we have a culture problem, because what happens is statistically speaking, if you grow up poor, you're going to stay poor, because a lot of people don't break the generational curse. They keep passing it down. What does that mean? You grow up with certain habits and then you pass those habits down to your kin, and so forth and so forth and so forth and so forth. People don't stop to break the generational curses. So for example, a lot of people that got those stipends during the pandemic, they spent those on frivolous things that they didn't necessarily need, like the newest Nikes, the newest iPhone, the newest Jordans. Instead of setting that money aside or investing that money and so forth, like if those people would have invested in certain things, potentially they would have more than tripled their money. Especially in a time when they weren't able to make their wage and their pay. So we're being told that we have certain types of problems, but what it's really doing is having you look here so you don't see what's going on here. And it's a really, really clever, maniacal, vindictive, hurtful, dangerous magic trick that's being played on the American people. And this isn't new. This is actually based off of something that a famous dictator actually did, which makes it even more scary. So I would definitely be focusing on education reform. I would be focusing on trying to protect jobs and create more jobs. I would also, you know, try to re-educate the people, because you hear a lot of people saying, oh, tax the rich, they need to pay their fair share of taxes. What they don't actually understand, I grew up in a lower middle class family. I was not wealthy by any means. My clothes were thrift store clothes and all kinds of other stuff. Like, we didn't have the best of everything, nothing like that. And what I have come to learn through self-education is rich people actually supply more jobs than the federal government. But nobody wants to tell you that, do they? And wealthy people actually pay more taxes than you probably make in a year of your salary. And so when you hear other people say, oh, tax the rich, they need to pay a fair share, that kind of tells you where their education level and their mindset is actually at versus what they're trying to project out into the world. Okay, so you're trying to tell me you have never used a tax break. You have never used a tax cut in your life. So you've never claimed something as a work expense. Certain states in the US allow you to actually claim your rent on your taxes and make some money back from rent that you have paid. You're trying to tell me you didn't use that? Are you trying to tell me that you haven't claimed your kids on your taxes if you have children? Are you trying to tell me that if you had a 6,000 pound plus vehicle that you've used for work, you didn't claim that on your taxes to get that as a complete write-off, which you can do in most states, and they don't teach you stuff like that? You're trying to tell me that you've never used a tax break ever whatsoever. Some states will give you a tax cut for buying a pellet stove. Okay, you're trying to tell me if you knew about those, you wouldn't use them. So why is it okay for you to use them and not the wealthy? Because the wealthy are still paying more taxes than you. So who should you be mad at, really? Mad at the wealthy who figured out these tax cuts to keep money that they earned? Or should you be mad at all the people that were responsible for your education because they purposely didn't teach you these things, even though they themselves know these things and use these, but they're telling you that the rich need to pay their fair share? Who should you really be mad at? These are the types of things that I would be focusing on: is better education, better guards for the future security of our country. I would also try to stop this, like, all of these movements for our military where they're trying to lower the standards of getting into the military for the sake of inclusivity. That is terrible. As a woman, that is terrible. You should not be lowering the standards for our military. That is going to put the whole security of our nation at risk, because no other country is going to do that. None. And if you think that they are, you're flat out nuts. You're nuts. Okay, there's a lot of things that I would try my best to focus on: education, taking care of the elderly, housing the homeless, addressing the drug crisis in this country, addressing, you know, different things that are making us sick, like our dry shampoo, our food. The fact that one apple today, you would need to eat roughly like 5 to 6 apples of today to get the same nutritional value as one apple in the 1950s. What is wrong with that? So we have a really big problem with misinformation in this country, with our education system, with our child care system, with our military. I'm not sure if I already said that. With our social media. We have a cultural crisis in our country. We care more about being an influencer as opposed to getting a real education and learning real skills. Like, if you have no life experience, who the heck are you worthy of influencing? We have like a very narcissistic, egotistical culture problem where bad habits are passed down and keeping people down instead of lifting people up with the proper information. There's so much I could go on by guys with that. I swear there's so much I could go on about that. I really want to help people, but we got to move on. Would I be interested in doing voiceover work? Absolutely. I'm a ham. I make myself laugh all day long. I would totally love to do voiceover work. I would have so much fun being on something like Bob's Burgers, or, you know, I don't know, just something. I would have so much fun with that. I would love to be like an old New York man. Like, I can do that voice so well. It's so funny. Like, sometimes I'll do voiceover for my animals as they're just going about their day-to-day lives, and they'll just look at me like, shut up. Okay. Have I ever met Medusa, and do I feel like her generation of women's wrestling needs more credit? Absolutely. I think her generation does not get the credit that they deserve. Everybody focuses on, and there's nothing wrong with this, by the way, because I actually love these women, but a lot of people tend to focus on like Lita and Trish moving women's wrestling forward, but nobody really talks about Medusa's generation as much as they should, or even prior to Medusa, like Princess Victoria, Velvet McIntyre and their generation. Like, they were legitimately the first WWF women's tag team champions. How many people actually acknowledge that and talk about that? Not many. I believe I have met Medusa. I'm actually thinking about having her on my podcast and vice versa. I actually have a lot of respect for Medusa, and her good opinion is something that I value. And yes, I do 100% think that her generation deserves so much more. We give so much credit to Lita and Trish, as we should, where they were one of the first main eventers. Like, that's huge for women's wrestling. But I don't think that we go back far enough. You know, I think, yeah, there's so much I could talk about that as well. And I actually talked about that quite a bit with Vince Russo on the Brand Live on a recent episode, I think 3 or 4 episodes ago. Do I think that there is a superhero film fatigue problem with too much, too fast, too soon? Absolutely. And this is why I think James Gunn and Peter Safran, the co-CEOs of DC Comics, are actually learning from the MCU's mistakes and from Sony's mistakes. I think this comes when too many people own too many different studios own the rights to so many different things. And that's what happens. You kind of get just bombarded over the head with superhero films. And I think that's why a lot of people are, you know, kind of being negative about superhero films. Now, I don't think that you need to be negative about them. I think there's a lot of really cool creative story arcs and different storytelling. And I think that that's great. But yeah, I do think that they've gone too ham with too much, too fast. You need to spread it out more. And I think that's what DC Comics is going, that's the direction they're going in after seeing the mistakes made by other people. So they're going to focus on like 2 major films and 2 streaming series a year, which I think is much more doable, because then you're not spreading yourself too thin just to try to make money. You know, now you can actually focus on the creative value of each story and make everything worthwhile for the people that are actually paying their hard-earned money to see these things. Because let's face it, everything is so expensive. So even when it comes to wrestling, you have to make sure that the service that you're providing is something worth people paying their hard-earned money for. Let me see here. Are you planning a new book? Yes, I am actually planning my 5th children's book, but I'm still promoting my 4th children's book, The Hopeful Spider. I'm actually so proud of that book. Every children's book that I have written actually has a life lesson that I went through and experienced myself. And my goal with my children's books was to not only help children, but also help the adults that are potentially reading these to children. You know, there's so many books and TV shows where you're like, oh my gosh, I can't watch CoComelon anymore. I can't hear the Baby Shark song. You know, so I wanted to create an alternative to, you know, something that, you know, both parent and child, and or maybe just an adult, can get something out of. I read my books all the time, and it kind of keeps me going and inspired, and I remember what I went through to inspire those stories, and I put them in such a way that a young child could enjoy as well as an adult. You know, like a sloth who wants to be a race car driver is like Taeler Hendrix who wanted to be a wrestler. You know, A Fish with a Wish is Trish, where a fish wants to become the first pilot. You know, Nosy Rosie and the Secret Surprise, about how an elephant who knew everything about everything going on in the jungle, and yet the only thing that she didn't know about was herself. You know, that was the biggest surprise of all. And then you have a spider who has to go out into the world for the first time and figure out who he is, and come to the realization that, you know, people come and go from your life, and that is okay. As long as you stay true and always follow through. And that sometimes friends are the family that you make along the way, as long as you keep going and stay true to who you are, and everything that you work hard for. And so I think there's a little bit of something for everyone in these stories that I am writing. So I'm definitely working on a 5th one, as well as a psychological suspense novel that I've been working on since I was in high school, on top of a lot of other things. Another person asked me, how do you always stay positive? Well, the answer is I am an imperfect person. And for the first time in my life, I'm confident in that. I am an imperfect person, and I am okay with that. I constantly work on myself, be it my mental health, my physical health, my emotional health. I don't just focus, I try to improve those things by controlling my environment and controlling who I share my energy with. I don't have time for the fickle likes and opinions of others. I don't have time for people's negative limiting beliefs of me. I don't have time for immature games. I'm very selective with who I hang around with and who I spend my time with and who I work for. And so one of the things that I do to stay happy is I focus on what I'm putting in and on my body. I had no idea that, there are so many things in our day-to-day lives that are disrupting our body's health, which also affects your mental health because of hormones, both for men and for women. Like, I had no idea that, if a man gets like a certain amount of sleep or less, that actually decreases his testosterone so much so to the effect that it matches somebody 10 to 15 years older than him. That's terrifying when you think about like such the poor quality of sleep that we get on an average basis. I didn't know that, my deodorant had toxic ingredients in it, or a certain favorite bottle of water I had that had like a chemical that's literally found in the lethal injection. That's terrifying. So I'm very careful with stuff like that now. I do a ton of research. I also make it a point to get much better quality sleep. I dealt with severe sleep apnea, which I didn't even know I had. And on top of restrictive lung disease and all this other stuff, I ended up having surgery in November. So that drastically helped my sleep. I had no idea how terrible my sleep actually was. I just knew I was tired all the time, and nobody believed me until I found the right doctor. Another thing I do is I listen to music every single day. Music makes me so happy and motivated. Another thing I do is I also make it a point to work on things that bring me joy, as well as my wallet. I think people focus so much on passion. You got to follow your dreams and your passion, but people don't realize that the world owes you nothing. Like, the world will go on with or without you, just like the wrestling business. It owes you nothing. It will go on with or without you. So it's great that you have a passion, but sometimes you need to be successful in something else so that something else can fund your passion. People don't seem to understand that concept anymore. And again, that goes back to the cultural problem I was talking about with work ethic and narcissism and stuff like that. And entitlement. It's a huge problem. Another thing I do is I make sure I get sun every single day, lots of sunscreen, and I make sure that I play with my animals and stuff, because it's also really good for mental health and joy. And I also try to keep whatever space I am in clean. For me, cleanliness and organization is happiness. That's just my type of personality. And living in a tiny house on wheels, a small mess can look like a giant mess. So I like to, follow my kindergarten rule, put things back where you found them. And those are some of the things that I do on a day-to-day basis, as well as writing down my goals and listening to positive speeches from different people. Like, there's an amazing speech by Chadwick Boseman who was doing a speech at a university. I listened to that speech all the time. I listen to a lot of Gary Vee stuff, Tony Robbins, all kinds of really good stuff from Steve Harvey. So I'm always constantly plugging myself with positivity. And you would be surprised how easy it starts to become, because when you start focusing on that, that's what you attract back in. When you're focused on negativity, that's all you're going to find and all you're going to see, because it's a subconscious compass, so to speak. Let me see. What is a food that you hate? Cauliflower. 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 I cannot say that enough. Everybody was pushing, oh, cauliflower, it's so much better than regular carbs. Blah, blah. BS. Your body needs carbs. It is a fuel. It needs it. Fuel your body, okay? I tried cauliflower mashed potatoes that had like a bacon thing in it. It was disgusting. It was so bad. And mashed potatoes is one of my favorite things. I make an amazing homemade mashed potato. And this was disgusting. I spit it out so fast. It was nasty. Are you allergic to anything? That's a really odd question. Yes, I have allergies. I did not have them in my childhood. They appeared later in life. And I will definitely have to say that one thing that I am dreadfully allergic to is stupidity. I said it. I stand by it. I make no apologies for it. Cannot stand stupidity. I am allergic to it. Trends that I hate. Okay, I keep getting asked this question, and today I came prepared, okay, because I know I have to keep passing that question because I'm like, here we go. I hate when people say there's a housing crisis. It's not, it's the affordability crisis. Stop it. All of a sudden, people are historians, and this grinds my gears. You'll hear people go, oh, throughout history. Listen, B. You are not a historian. You do not even know your own history. Like, I bet you could not tell me what you had for lunch last Tuesday. So don't sit here and try to tell me, oh, throughout history, yada, yada, yada. You have just been indoctrinated with sentences like that. You are not a historian. You do not know. Stop it. You are not about it. Stop. Stop. Another thing I hate is people that are not about it. Okay, you hear so many people preaching so many things as if they know stuff. I miss the days where actors were exactly that. Where actors and musicians stayed in their lane. You know, when you watch an award show, not every speech had some sort of political agenda that they literally have no right to talk about half the time. Like, you're an actor, not a political studies major. You are not in the political field. Like, just stop. Like, just stop. Okay, it's like going to a dentist with bad teeth. Do you really feel confident that that dentist really knows what they're talking about if they have bad teeth? Think about that for a second. I'll wait. It's like if you want a personal trainer and you see that the personal trainer is not really in a certain physical shape, I guess is how I would delicately put that. How confident do you actually feel that that person is going to help you achieve your goals of fitness if they're not even doing that for themselves? Be about it. Do not be a dentist with bad teeth. Period. End of story. Okay, so many people preach about positive vibes and all this other stuff on social media, and they're some of the most toxic people. If you're going to preach it, be about it. And stop regurgitating all this information that you've been bludgeoned in the head with. You've been bludgeoned with that for a reason, and you are playing into it by buying into it. Be about what you're saying. Do not be a dentist with bad teeth. And you were probably not a historian, so stop it. Like,